And actually, we talked to some product leaders. We got some feedback from folks around the world, asking them, to share their thoughts about the challenges with lean and agile product development. And here's what they said.
In your experience, what are the challenges with lean and agile development approaches to product development? I think the biggest challenge is the business stakeholders often take lean and agile and take it to an extreme and view it as a way to make a lot of last minute changes or changes that haven't been thought out well. So we would have a product or a feature that has been heavily discussed in the planning period and went through some iterations, but then have very last minute changes or counterproductive changes that are always immediate, that requires immediate attention, and that is counterproductive to the release.
Mostly because if you're doing lean and agile, you want to be able to shift and rotate priorities based on the needs that are coming up. The bad thing is some things get pushed farther and farther. If you're working a product that has multiple people, one may go, hey, this is urgent, and go, yeah, cool, that needs to get fixed first. But the second, third, fourth things that are requested by other customers may get pushed down the line. And they may be okay for now, but they do need to get brought back up in the priority at some point. The challenges I see a lot with lean and agile is that those priorities never come back up for those other items. It's always just critical item that needs to be fixed, critical item that needs to be fixed, and none of that other development occurs. So that's really the big thing that I see.
I would say the biggest challenges with those are resources. Agile is perfect when your team is fully staffed and you actually have a bunch of developers on your team that can work on things. But one of the biggest challenges is that if you don't have that or you're short-staffed, it kind of makes it hard for you to be flexible. The point of Agile is to try to, the point of Agile is to make yourself adaptable, right? So in case things come up or things don't work the way we thought, we scrap them, move on to something else in a reasonable time frame. So to me, the biggest challenge is making sure you have enough resources to do the work and to have those discussions.
So overall, it sounds like they agree with you about the challenges with lean and agile. What are your thoughts after listening to that?
I think the thing that really stands out for me is this focus on, always working on what is immediate, critical, and urgent, right? So one of the people in that video is saying, we keep shifting our priorities so that we keep working on what's urgent. This is one of the problems with over-relying on iteration, where, we continue to work on what bubbles to the top. One of the frameworks that we use for deciding what we're going to work on in that sprint is the value or the impact that we're going to deliver versus the effort that it takes. So what ends up happening is we always keep focusing on stuff that is less effort and more value. And it always means that we keep working on small things that are urgent and what's needed, which is exactly what these users of Lean and Agile were talking about. So in the radical product thinking way, the way we make decisions, it's on a 2x2 axis. So you think about your vision as your y-axis and survival as your x-axis. So we've talked about what is a good vision, right? It's this problem that you're solving, and so something that's truly helping you make a dent towards solving that is a good vision fit. So it ranks high on the vision. And your x-axis is survival, meaning you think about what's your biggest risk to your product. So if you're a startup, your biggest risk is financial. If you run out of money, then your product dies. If you're in a bigger company, maybe you have all the money you need, but let's say your stakeholders don't approve of what you're doing. Well, that's going to make you lose your job, and so you don't make progress towards your vision, right? So we think about vision versus survival. And the way to think about then what would you work on is, well, it leads to 4 quadrants. The ideal quadrant is what's good for vision and is helping you survive, right? But if we always focus on ideal, then we're being myopic and always short-term driven. So in a sprint, you also have to think about how often are you investing in the vision? So that's basically where, it's good for the vision, and it doesn't always help you survive in the short term. So think about refactoring code for 3 months, right? It's not helping, it's definitely good for your vision, but it's not helping you release features that are maybe revenue generating for those 3 months. So that's investing in the vision. And the opposite of that is when you take on vision debt. So that's where it's good for survival, but it's not good for your vision. So when you think about, a custom feature that your customer is asking for, and your salesperson says, we'll win this mega deal if we just do this one feature. We've all heard that, right, as product people. And so that's taking on vision debt, which, by the way, is like technical debt, but it's even harder to pay back because you cannot fire your customers, right? And so if you keep accumulating vision debt, then you catch obsessive sales disorder. So one of the solutions, or one of the things that I find really helpful when we're using Lean and Agile, is to use this approach of vision versus survival when we're prioritizing things for a sprint. Talk about, what features fall in the ideal category, and maybe you'll pick a few of those. Think about, how often are you investing in the vision? If you're not, maybe, if you're, for example, solving some technical debt, that's investing in the vision. So think about how much effort are you going to spend on investing in the vision. And then you try to avoid the vision debt, which is, you try to say, well, maybe occasionally you'll take on vision debt because it's so critical for survival. But you try to avoid it as much as possible. So there are no right answers, but it gives a framework for how do we avoid some of those problems that these users were talking about in Lean and Agile.